Let's dive in. So early on in podcast life, and I'm learning this, you you have as guests your most talented friends. So here we go. Here we go. Cait Donovan is a keynote speaker, one of New York City's leading burnout experts, host of Fried, the Burnout Podcast, author of the book, The Bouncebackability Factor. That's a tough one to say, but good name. And an acupuncturist with a master's degree in Chinese medicine. Her creative burnout recovery solutions have been featured on podcasts and online magazines such as Forbes, NPR, and the New York Post, and in companies such as Lululemon. I said Bouncebackability Factor, but I couldn't say Lululemon, and PepsiCo. Cait, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always nice to be, first of all, considered a talented friend, but second of all, to be considered a friend. So
There you do. Both
cheers
of
to
those
that.
things. Both of those things. Very cool. So let me start off with a real basic question. How does one become a burnout expert?
You start by burning out really terribly, not knowing what the
Hold
heck
on,
to
I'm
do.
writing this down. So step one, I burn out.
Step one, burn out terribly. Step two, realize this was when I burnt out was 2016 or when I realized I was burnout, I should say, it was 2016. And I was in Europe at the time, and there was almost no information on what to do. There's some information, some research on some of the causes, which weren't applicable to me at the time because the subjects that they were researching were corporate workers, and I was an entrepreneur. And so I didn't really have a lot of, like, what can I do here? There weren't books. There wasn't a lot of research. I looked for everything that I could, and I'm a healthcare practitioner, so I have probably, a little bit of extra information that the average human doesn't have. And I still didn't know what to do. So I went through a process with coaching. I had a therapist. I used functional medicine. I used acupuncture. I went through this like very long, drawn out process. It probably took me a year and a half, 2 years to get to the point where I wasn't afraid anymore of saying yes to things for fear that I would be crashed after and wouldn't be able to function. Took me about 2 years. And then people started asking for my help. That's the same story every time. I didn't plan on becoming a burnout specialist, but I was writing about what I was going through not even on a blog. I was like writing on Facebook, like just friends. And people were like, oh, I think that's happening to me. What do I do? And I realized that a lot of the things that I learned over the years in acupuncture and treating patients for 15 years were really applicable to people without needles, right? Just talking to people and saying, hey, do this, do this, do that. And so it kind of grew out of that.
And how did you know? You said, "Oh, I didn't realize this was happening to me," or
Yeah.
when someone described it, said, "Oh my God, that's happening to me as well."
Yeah.
What was happening to you? What and I guess that in combination with, I don't know if it's the same answer or different answers. What was happening to you, and how do you define what burnout is?
So for me in my life at that time, I was really annoyed at all my patients all the time. Anytime somebody asked me for anything, I was like, what else do you people want from me? I had so much resentment. I was such a martyr. Like, I give so much to everybody and I don't, get it back. This just sort of this constant anger and irritation that I was giving too much to the world. My
Isn't that
relationships.
being a parent?
Yeah. I'm not even a
Sounds
parent.
familiar.
I didn't even do that. And I still felt that way. And my relationship was breaking down with my partner. I was, also my health was breaking down. I was gaining weight. My thyroid was going haywire. And all of my doctors were saying, everything's fine. And I was like, it's not fine. I'm not normal. And the thing that really hit me was that I was living in Prague while this was happening, and I used to walk from the tram to my apartment. It's a 4-minute walk up a hill, and 4 minutes. And I did it every day. And it got to the point where I had to stop halfway up the hill because I couldn't make it the whole way home after getting off. I was so physically tired that I couldn't make it. And I would sit there and cry, thinking that I had to finish the walk up the hill and then go inside and get my dog and take my dog out for a walk. And I didn't know how I was going to manage it. I was that tired. And this is coming from I was a competitive gymnast growing up. I was the captain of the field hockey team. I ran track. I've been an exerciser my whole entire life, and I couldn't walk up a damn hill. So I was just breaking down in my emotional life was breaking down, my physical life was breaking down, everything was falling apart. I read an article one day on burnout, hadn't heard of it before, didn't know what it was, even as a healthcare practitioner, and had never come across it. And I'm reading it and my whole body is going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is it. This is why you haven't been able to figure it out. Because the things you've been looking at have not been the problem. This is what's happening." And that's when it all started turning around for me. But getting back to the definition of burnout, right now, the World Health Organization, as of May 2019, the World Health Organization adopted a definition of burnout that they call an occupational phenomenon, not a disease, not a syndrome, but an occupational phenomenon. And that's really important because the World Health Organization considers burnout only within a work context, which I believe to be incorrect and incomplete. However, this is the working definition that we have right now. And in addition to the fact that it's related to work, there must be 3 components. One is physical and emotional exhaustion. I was like, check, check, check. The next is cynicism and detachment. Check, check, check. So I call this being a negative Nancy and not wanting to be with anyone. And the third is a lack of efficacy, a lack of impact, a lack of productivity. So this can show in different ways, but it means sort of that no matter how important your job is or how impactful your job is, you don't see it as being impactful. And you can't produce to the same level you used to, and you just don't have it in you. So I was helping people have babies as an acupuncturist at that point, and I didn't care when people were getting pregnant. I was like, "Oh, good, another person I can take off my list." Rather than, "Yay, you're pregnant. Yeah, hey, let's celebrate." I was like, "Ugh, another one. Great."
And what so this may be different in every human being, or
Yeah.
maybe there are 1 or 2 standard ways, but what causes it? I mean, what caused it for you? What causes it in most people? Is it simply being overwhelmed with too many things to do, or does it have nothing to do with how much you actually have going on?
This is a bigger question that I have an entire 1-hour keynote on. But I will shorten it for you. So, the research that has been done over the past 40-ish years, which is all the research we have on burnout, and women were included in research on stress until about the year 2000. So, we're really not talking about a very long time as far as research is concerned. The research that we have currently is mostly by Christina Maslach, Michael Leader, and their teams. And it shows us that in the workplace, there are 6 factors that lead to burnout in the workplace itself. And this has been shown time and time again. So workload, which is kind of related to job strain and autonomy. So not only how much work you have, but how many hours it takes you and how much autonomy you have to decide when you do it, how you do it, etc. There's also a lack of community at the workplace is a factor. A lack of fairness is a factor. A lack of recognition and praise for your work is a factor. A values mismatch, which can be 2 different things that isn't really clear in the research, but when you dig in, you can find it. The values mismatch can be a mismatch between a company's spoken values and values in action. We all know how that breaks people down. When a company is out of its own integrity, the employees are lost. And when there can also be a values mismatch between the company and the employee. Like, I've been focused on keeping people healthy for 20 years. Probably not going to work for a cigarette company, right? Like, that would be a values mismatch for me. So
So,
a values mismatch can also be an issue. So there's all these factors, right?
got it. So the lens that I take on this show,
Yeah.
the Better Leadership Team
Yeah.
show, is that leadership lens.
Yes.
And that could be the CEO, entrepreneur, owner. That could be, the executive team.
Yeah.
Really, when I say leadership team, I kind of broadly say any team of leaders that lead other people.
Yeah.
So when you think of those leaders and you think of the 6 things you just brought up,
Yeah.
let's start off talking about the entrepreneur, because when I tend to talk to prospective clients, they are, and I don't know clinically whether I think about it in the right way, but they seem to me to be right on the borderline of burnout.
Mm.
They may not be, if they were totally burnt out, they probably wouldn't be calling me because
They
they'd
wouldn't
be
have the
too
oomph.
dismissive of the whole idea. but they still have enough fire burning
Mhm.
to call me and say, "Hey, I need your help," but man, they're close to the edge. So,
Yeah.
and I see that in a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You felt it as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yep.
Why do you, and I don't know if statistically it hits entrepreneurs more than other people, but why do you think, when you talk about values and alignment, man, the entrepreneur, according to what you see from the outside looking in, they're doing what they want to do.
Except
Ha
for
ha
are they?
ha. We know that's not really true.
Right,
But
exactly.
why do you think it hits entrepreneurs so hard?
I think it hits entrepreneurs so hard because most entrepreneurs do not know ahead of time that you have to wear all the damn hats, especially in the beginning. You're gonna build a business. You are your social media person. You are your salesperson. You are the work product. You are, and we could just keep your HR. You are customer service. You're all the things. And then you're building a website in the background because you can't afford to pay somebody to do it. And then you are, creating a podcast and learning how to edit it because you don't know, you can't afford to pay anybody to do it. And then. So I think one of the big factors is that one of the factors when you break down the work overload in the 6 factors, that can be job strain. It can also be role conflict and role ambiguity. So role conflict is that you're being asked to do 2 things that are opposite from one another, right? Which can happen. And role ambiguity, that you don't have a really clear view of what it is you're supposed to be doing. How many entrepreneurs have you talked to that are like, God, I'm spinning my wheels. Today, I decided to do this thing, and then I forgot that I was focused on that. So I did thing X, and now I'm not doing any of the things that move the needle financially, but I'm real busy.
Hey, and I'll add something to that, because when people hear that, at least for me, the picture I get in my head is the early on
Yeah.
entrepreneur with the smaller business. They don't
Yeah.
really have a leadership team. It's them. They've got 5 people running around
Yep.
helping. They're doing everything. But I think when you talk about role ambiguity, the thing people don't think about is the 30, 40, $50 million company.
Hmm.
You are now the CEO.
But you don't
Yes,
know
you're
how to be a
it's some
CEO.
exactly right. You're the CEO, but you think your job is to do everybody else's job,
Yes.
because no one ever teaches you how to be a CEO. And
Yes.
even there, that role ambiguity exists, maybe even
Huge.
worse.
Huge, and especially because as you pick things up in the beginning, this is exactly where I was going with that. You picked up on it perfectly. As you go through that in the beginning, what happens is even when you start delegating, there's some things that you never learn to hand off. And there's some things that you never learn to trust people with. So you hold on to them. And there's some things that you never learn that you could just stop doing altogether and it wouldn't matter at all because you've built them into the way you're structuring your days. So you're getting up and you're doing them out of habit at this point, never stopping to do an analysis and seeing, do I still need to be doing first, does this need to be delegated? And if not, like, does it need to be done at all? We just pick things up and then continue them. Somebody said to me, well, I started this podcast and I said I was going to do it every week. So I keep up with it, but I'm having a really, I said, then do it differently. Do it every 2 weeks if you want. No, listen, hey, nobody cares. But you created this rule in your head. And this, as you grow in your business, if you're not taking the time to do those assessments, what needs to get dropped? What needs to get delegated? What needs a better tool? What needs an upgrade? If you're not making those decisions on a regular basis, you're going to end up with the most ambiguity.
I love that. I love that. And there's an exercise that a lot of people do called the start, stop, keep,
Yes.
or start, stop, continue. I don't do that with my clients. What I tell them is, every time we get together, you're adding crap to your to-do list. So we don't need to start. We don't need to keep. We're going to do a stop exercise. And it's exactly what you're saying. Every once in a while, you got to sit down for yourself, for the team, and say, what are we doing that's just not worth doing anymore?
Yes.
And don't delegate your crap to somebody else. Get
If it
rid of
doesn't
it
need to be
first.
done.
Right.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love that.
This is what I
So
use resentment for.
say more about, I've heard you mention resentment before, which always sounds like, oh, resentment is a bad thing. And I know you don't look at it that way.
No, it's
Tell
beautiful.
tell me more about resentment.
This is the first question when you're doing a resentment journal. The first step is to write down things you're resentful of. If you're doing it for a company, then you write things that you're resentful about within your company. And the first question, once you see a pattern and you see, oh, I see this thing popping up a lot. I've been doing this for a week. I keep seeing this same issue popping up. The first question you ask of a resentment is, does this thing even need to be done?
Define first, when you say resentment,
Yeah.
my picture is like, are there people that I resent? Define how you're using the word resentment.
It can be people. You can be resentful of people. You'll know that when their name pops up into your email box and you start rolling your eyes before you even open it. You're like, "Oh my god, this guy again." Right? So that's a clear sign. But you can also be resentful of tasks. And it's
Okay.
when it comes up on your calendar, it's that same result. You're looking at it, you're like, "Oh my god, this again." Like, "I can't believe I have to keep doing this." I I passed off my podcast editing when I got to the point where I was like, if I do this anymore, I'm gonna go out into the street and lose my mind. I can't do this anymore." Right? So you'll start to see that there are certain tasks and certain people and certain situations that every single time they come up, you're mad, you're irritated. I use the word resentment because it's my favorite, but we really are talking about the anger group. Anger, irritation, resentment, frustration, annoyance, right?
Got it.
Any of those really will work. And the more you see those things, jot them down. Start jotting them down. Once you have them jotted down, I promise you'll notice some sort of pattern. A person, a task, a thing. And then you ask question number 1 of the question sieve. Question number 1 is, does this thing need to be done? If it doesn't need to be done, drop it. It's off your plate. It's done. It's over. It's gone. Yay! Celebrate. Just get rid of it. If it does need to be done, the next question in the decision tree is, do I need to do it? Now we're getting to, okay, this thing does need to be done, but I don't need to do it. Now I can delegate. If this thing does need to be done, and I need to do it, or somebody else needs to do it, and it could be done better, is there a tool that I can use to upgrade the process? And this tool can be a person, it can be a software, it can be like, I did this in my home. One of the things that I upgraded was my knife sharpener because I noticed every morning I was slicing a tomato for my egg sandwich and I was annoyed that, you put the knife down and if the knife isn't sharp enough, it just squishes the tomato down. And so you have to flip it up to the top, poke the tomato with the sharpest point of the knife, and then put your knife back and slice down the tomato. I was so annoyed with it that I got a new knife sharpener. I upgraded my
So
tool.
you resented the knife, not the
I
tomato.
resented the knife. Stupid knife, right? And that seems like a silly thing, but there are when there are 700 of those things during your day, try and be in a good mood. Try and be ready to lead other people. Try and be ready to manage people's emotions and tasks. When you're annoyed from the beginning of your day because you hate the shape of your coffee mug because your fingers don't fit in it right, your knife isn't slicing properly, and everything, like nothing works.
I'm realizing I do hate my coffee mug.
Right? Get a new
Oh
one.
my God. And I have a bunch. My kids just got me a great new coffee mug for my birthday. So I'm very excited now.
The
So
coffee mugs
so
seem silly, but they're important.
here's the question. So
Yeah.
so you've got the resentment journal, you
Yep.
called it, right?
Yep.
And you're either, I'm going to paraphrase, you're throwing it away,
Yep.
you're delegating it, you're
Yep.
automating it or finding a better way to do it. I
Yep.
love it. But here's the question that jumps into my head
Yep.
is part of burnout is
Mhm.
you feel like, I forget exactly how you put it, but you kind of feel like, what's the use, right? It's not
Yeah.
going to work. So if you're feeling burnt out, maybe the key is do this before you're feeling burnt out. But if you're feeling burnt out, don't you get clients you work with who say that's never going to work? Like that's part of
Yes.
being burnt out is you're not going to want to do that stuff.
Yes, and this is one of the only things that I've actually found to start moving the needle for people in a way that's impactful before making bigger changes, because when you're burnt out, we need to make bigger changes than your kitchen knife. But if you can't make those small changes, we are not buying you enough of your energy back to be able to handle the other stuff. And I just explained that to people flat out. I'm going to give you some things to do. They're not going to seem very big, but I need you to do them anyway because we need to buy back your energy from you. Where is it being spent in ways that are just not useful? We need it back. Then we can go do some other stuff.
Small steps.
We
Love
have to. There's no other way to do it. You don't have the wherewithal during burnout to do anything else. So we do as small as possible until we have earned enough of your energy back, until we have lit your pilot light and turned it up enough that it can catch flame when we add in something bigger.
Got it. So you've got the resentment journal, and I imagine on the resentment journal, could be things like I need a new knife, or it could be things like I need a new team, or I need a new
Sure.
business, right? So those could
Sure.
be big or small. But
Sure.
what are some of the other strategies that you find are helpful? And just so you know where my head is going, I want to talk about strategies when you are feeling burnout. What are strategies to get that fire lit again? As you said, what are
Yeah.
strategies to get out of burnout? And then where I want to go, and it may be some of the same strategies, is how do we make sure we are doing the things we need to do so we don't get burnt out, right? And
Yeah.
those, again, they may be similar strategies and they may be different. But first, talk to me about some more strategies that help people get out of that feeling
So
of
I will
burnout.
have to rewind a tiny bit because we talked about what the definition of burnout is, but we haven't talked about what's actually happening in the body. And one of the one, two, or three of the things, maybe I should say, that's happening is that your brain structure has changed. And I mean this actually that you physically, your brain has changed. So the front part of your brain that sits right behind your forehead is where all of our adulting happens. It's called executive function. This is decision making, this is motivation, this is empathy, this is emotional regulation, this is focus. It all happens in that part of your brain. When you're burnt out, that part of your brain has shrunk. You've literally lost brain cells. Right?
Right.
You don't have as much access to these tools as you did before. In another part of your brain, in the amygdala, there's one on either side, a right and a left. The amygdala is responsible for letting us know whether or not we're safe. So it's constantly scanning your environment to tell you whether or not you should be activating your stress response or you don't have to, right? This is evolutionary. It's absolutely necessary. We have to have it. It's a good thing. But chronic stress over a long period of time, which is what gets us to burnout, makes this part of your brain, instead of shrink, it makes it grow. So this part of your brain is now hyper alert. So now you're scanning your environment twice every second instead of once. Now things that looked safe 2 weeks ago look dangerous. Now
And that's why
everything
simple things,
exactly.
when I have felt this way before, it's as silly as, "Oh my god, I have to do the laundry now."
Yes,
And that feels like a big thing that I've gotta do the
exactly.
laundry, so that makes sense.
Yes. Everything seems to be a danger when you're in burnout. So it's hard to make a move because you're constantly in fight or flight. You're constantly ready to battle away a lion, right? So we have this front part of your brain that's supposed to manage that emotional response. So when your brain is healthy and normal and your amygdala fires up and says, danger, the front of your brain gets real rational and says, hey, let's think about that for a minute. This is just a kitchen knife and it's just on the counter. I can put it in the sink so that it's in a less dangerous space. But my life is not actually in danger. I'm actually okay right now. And then your amygdala goes, oh, cool. I'm glad you got this. But when you're burnt out and the front part of your brain is not online and your amygdala is overactive and their communication is not as clear, the road that they communicate on is not as clear as it should be. There's a lot of heavy traffic going on in there. You can't regulate your emotional response to things. So your amygdala is on fire. The thing that most people tell me, especially in leadership roles, when they're burnt out is, I don't like the person that I've become. I don't feel like I can control myself. I'm bursting in anger. I'm yelling at everyone. Nobody seems to want to work with me. My team told me to take time off because they can't stand me right now. Right? Because you can't control this response. These are not the only things that happen in the brain, but this is something these two pieces that I think are really representative for the majority of people and something that people can understand with ease. So knowing that that is happening.
And just to be clear, by the way, to go back,
Yeah.
that doesn't just happen and then, "Oh my
No,
god, I'm burnt out."
no.
You said it's that chronic stress. So
Yes.
not the stress of something happens in a day and, "Oh my god, the next day, my
No.
executive functioning track." It's that chronic
It's years.
stress of months and years of whatever.
Yes.
It slowly happens, and then all of a sudden it
Yes.
gets to the point that you feel it.
Yes. And you say, well, I could always manage this much stress before. The thing is, you weren't managing it, but you didn't know that because you
Yeah.
can't see your brain functioning. It was getting worse and worse over time, but you didn't see it, right? Because we make small adjustments as we go. When your hip starts to hurt, you start to walk a little different, but you don't really think it's a problem. And then your foot hurts, so you walk a little different again. 6 months down the road, you're limping on both sides and you really need help because you make small adjustments. You do that with stress too. You make a small stress response, you create a coping mechanism. You're handling it okay until it breaks down, until it gets worse. So we have our brain in this state. The question we need to be asking when our brain is in this state is, what can we do to reverse some of these changes? And in this regard, we go to you. I know you love Andrew Huberman.
I was
So
just listening to him interviewing Jocko Willink a little
I
earlier.
love it, love it. So right, so we're on the Huberman Lab podcast for the moment. Big shout out to that. He talks about something called non-sleep deep rest, which in traditional cultures is yoga nidra or some sort of body scan. This is a guided meditation where you are as relaxed as possible and you're being told, relax your forehead, relax your eyes, relax your mouth, relax your jaw, relax, kind of through your whole body. And there's really clear research that shows that if you do this for 11 minutes a day for 30 days, your brain will start to get back online. Your prefrontal cortex will grow, your amygdala will shrink, things will start to go back to normal. So I have people do this most frequently just before bed because this is, if you fall asleep, I don't care. That's fine. Good, because at least what's happening is you're entering a state of rest where your body can restore itself. And then you're entering your natural state of rest where your body's job is to restore itself. When you are under chronic stress, that restoration doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to. But if you're doing yoga nidra just before bed, then you are amping up your chances and your ability to repair your body as you sleep as you're supposed to. So this is something that everybody can do. It's free. Like, go get it on YouTube. Go to Insight Timer. You can do
And tell
this.
us one more time what it's called.
You can type in yoga nidra. The second word is Nidra. Or if you want to look it up on the Huberman podcast and listen to how he describes it, he calls it non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. And he also has a short 10-minute YouTube video on NSDR that he shares with people for free. So these are free resources that anybody can use, that if you find yourself edging toward that space, you can pull yourself out of it. So yoga nidra to me is both a burnout prevention and burnout recovery mechanism.
Yeah, that's what it's like. Why
Right?
wait till you're burnt out to do that?
Right?
Exactly.
Just do it. Right. So this can be in either side. And I think that that's really important. Most other things fall into one side or the other. Burnout prevention is just stress management. There's no difference between burnout prevention and stress management. The reason I don't focus on burnout prevention in my work is because by the time you're worried about burnout, you don't need prevention anymore. You need recovery. We're beyond that.
So you're saying if someone's listening to this and they're worried they might be burnt out,
You're already burnt
they're
out.
probably burnt out.
Mhm.
Okay.
Chances are very high. By the time you're looking at like, oh, I should probably prevent burnout, it's too late. You've already crossed a barrier, a boundary. So yoga nidra is a really good place to start. Right? That's a really important thing. The next thing, when you are physically and mentally exhausted, a lot of high performers, a lot of high leaders, a lot of CEOs are big into exercise. They're doing triathlons and they're like, that's how I keep my balance. When you're burnt out, one of the things that happens is you have muscle atrophy. So you stop having the ability to do the same level of exercise as before. That 5K run that used to give you power is now making you exhausted. So you do the same run that you've been doing for the past 5 years, but you're coming back and you need a nap instead of coming back feeling pumped and ready for your day. This is a very clear sign of burnout. And the response to this is keep moving, but move slow instead of fast. I don't want you to stop moving. Your body needs movement. It's critical. But I might want you to do Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga or walking instead of running and CrossFit and Orange Theory.
And to be clear, and you said this, but I want to go kind of hammer it in, is we're not saying to prevent burnout.
No.
Move slower. You're saying if you're in burnout, that's when you might need to do this.
To prevent burnout, sweat. When you need to prevent if that's what you're thinking about, if you're like, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain my stress response system, you better sweat. Doing a pretty intense workout, even if it's just 20 minutes, that raises your adrenaline, helps to shut down your stress response system. So if you have a meeting that really throws you through the roof, hop on your Peloton for 20 minutes, get the cycle to finish. This is something that's talked about in the book that's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by the Nagoski sisters. You got to finish the stress cycle. So if you're having a lot of stress but you're not burnt out yet, make sure you're getting in enough fast, sweaty movement to help your body hormonally go through the whole cycle and end it, instead of being stuck in the cycle and dragging it out. So
That's
those are
such
2
an
very different
for
processes.
someone that is disciplined in most areas of his life. I'm
Yeah,
looking in the mirror when I say this, but not disciplined when it comes to working out.
yeah,
That's such an empowering way to think, is that the sweat is gonna, takes care of the stressors. I love
yeah.
that.
It doesn't change the stressor necessarily, but it does move your hormones go through a pathway when you get stressed. The first thing that happens is your adrenaline spikes. After that, your cortisol spikes. Adrenaline goes back down typically within an hour. Cortisol takes sometimes a couple of weeks to go back down to normal. If you can sweat it out and push it, you'll push another stress response, which will force your body to close that cycle faster. Right, so this is just a basic biological, like, do this for biology. It just works.
Love it. Love it. So we talked about both resentment journal
Yeah,
and the yoga nidra. That is, whether you're already in burnout, or both of those could be great
yeah,
burnout
yeah,
preventers.
yeah.
The idea of kind of keep moving but slow it down, whether
It's
it's Tai
definitely on the
Chi or
recovery
yoga,
side.
whatever, that's on the recovery side. What else do you find helpful on the recovery side?
I think that the resentment journal can be helpful during prevention, but I think it's more helpful on the recovery side. I would put gratitude journal on the prevention side. Do not try and your gratitude journal your way out of burnout. That will not work because you will be writing stuff down. I'm so grateful for, and you will not feel a thing.
You're
You
you're
won't feel.
writing stuff down and your brain is going bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's happening. But when you're not there yet, if you can practice gratitude, or more specifically, if you can practice awe, you will be doing yourself grand favors. This is a big one. There's a new book out called The Power of Awe by Michael Amster and Jake. I forget his last name.
Poor,
It might
poor,
not even be
poor
Jake.
Jake.
It might not even be Jake. It might be something else. It might be Luke. I don't know. But Michael Amster. And in this book, they explain what awe does to your brain. And it has a very similar function to Yoga Nidra.
How do you define gratitude, awe versus gratitude?
Gratitude is feelings of gratefulness, right? Just understanding that there are blessings in your life in some way, shape, or form. Awe is that moment where you look at a sunset or a vista and it just something hits you and your whole body, just your energy expands and just goes, wow, wow. Gratitude is thank you. Awe is wow.
Interesting. Love it. It's almost like, I can't believe the universe has brought
Yes.
this here.
You know that moment that you see you see a sunset that you weren't expecting to catch, and it's really wonderful? Every once in a while when I'm leaving a National Speakers Association meeting on a Friday, when it's the right timing, the sunset in the city it changes the way everything looks. It's just that moment of like, "Whoa."
But that's, again, burnout prevention.
Their
Uh,
research shows that it can be used for both. They actually did
oh yeah.
research on it, and they say it can be used for both. But I think gratitude journaling belongs on the prevention side, and resentment journaling belongs on the recovery side.
So this is excellent stuff. Really helpful. I want to go back to the leadership aspect
Yeah.
of it and take it from two standpoints. One is, this is the second one I'm going to want to cover, but so you know where I'm going.
Eh,
One is, as a leader, I want to talk a little bit about how your burnout can impact others,
mm,
which may, if nothing else, add some urgency to fix that damn thing, or not. But the other one is, if you're a leader, how do you see, if you've got someone on your team
mhm,
or a peer on your
mhm,
leadership team,
mhm.
how can you identify if
Mhm,
someone is going through that, if someone's feeling burnt
mhm.
out? And what can you, and most leaders are not practitioners in Chinese medicine and all the background you have and Michael Amster and all that. What should people, how do they recognize it? And what should they do about it if they see it?
So if we know the signs are physical and emotional exhaustion, lack of productivity, and being negative, that's what you look for. So, but what we're actually noticing in people are personality changes. So somebody who used to be pretty upbeat is coming in and now really not being upbeat. They're really negative all of a sudden. It doesn't feel normal to them. Somebody that was also always producing at a 10 out of 10 scale is suddenly at a 7 out of 10 scale for the last 2.5 months consistently. Something's not right here. There typically tends to be some sort of complaint about their behavior during that time because the way they're treating other people has shifted too. So people will mention, like, gosh, John's been in a mood lately. Like, has anybody else noticed that? So you're looking for mood changes, community changes, and work changes.
Got it. And then if you see that,
Yeah.
how, I mean, it's, I guess I'm thinking two things. One is, it's got to be, it's a sensitive subject to approach with someone.
Yeah.
But then, even if you do, again, as someone who's not a practitioner and helping folks with burnout, what can we do as leaders to help when we see that?
And I think this is the big trick thing because most of the things that they're telling leaders to do for burnout are really great for prevention. Making sure that recognition and praise are intact in your team is critical for prevention. Making sure that workload is okay is great for prevention. Making sure that compensation is fair. Making sure that the community is tight. All of those things are great preventative factors. But once somebody's already there, your preventative factors didn't work. So you have to do that. You have to implement some of those factors because clearly something's not working on your team. But the conversation needs to start with that person, no matter how sensitive it is. As a leader, one of the things that you are responsible for is having difficult and brave conversations. This is a huge, huge belief of mine in leadership. If you don't know how to have difficult conversations, you should not be a leader. Period. Amen.
Love it.
And they suck and they're hard. And I get it. But if you can't have them, nobody else is going to have them. And if you can't have difficult conversations in your business, it's never going to go anywhere because these conversations have to happen, right? So you need to sit down with this person and say, all right, listen, I've noticed these couple of things and I want to know, is there something going on at home that you haven't talked to us about? You don't need to tell me what it is, but do you need some time? Is there some support? Is there something that I'm not seeing happening on the team? Is there some lack of fairness? You can take out the 6 factors that create burnout in the workplace and say, is there one of these that you think is most important? Is there something that you see going on? Once you get someone engaged, you don't necessarily have to talk to them only about themselves. You can talk to them about how the team is functioning, how the company is functioning, how things are going overall, because that gives them a little bit more space to express some things. Because I promise you, it's not just about them. There's something in your company that's not working right, and you need to know what that is for other people because you need to fix that.
And they may be more comfortable talking about it if they
Yes,
disassociate it a little bit for
exactly.
themselves. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And once you've opened that door, then chances are you can have better and different conversations after that. But your first stop should be, hey, I sort of noticed this happening. These are some things that I've learned that cause it. What would you mark off on this list? Like how can we what do we need to do here? And that gives people the opportunity to say, you know what, I am going through that. And it might be because their mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's last week, and they've been a mess, or not last week, that wouldn't happen that fast, but it's been 6 months that they've been in the sandwich generation, and they've got small kids at home and a mother to take care of that lives 2 hours away, so they've been driving back and forth, and it might be because of external circumstances. If you find that out, then you can figure something out with people. I've seen some amazing leaders step up in massive big ways in the past couple of years. I've seen people say, "You know what? We'll pay you for your job fully, but we'll reduce your responsibilities to the 70% you've been able to keep up with. And then when you're ready, you let me know and we'll bump you back up." And it works. It works. People stay because they feel supported. It builds loyalty, right? There are solutions here.
Love it. Now I want to go where I said I was going to go, which
Yeah.
is you are a leader and you are experiencing burnout. Or as you said, you think you might be experiencing burnout, which probably means you're experiencing burnout. So it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
How have you seen that impact the folks around them, whether it's peers on that leadership team, whether it's their team that reports up to them? It may be an obvious point, but I want to get kind of specific, like, because part of me in doing it is I want to kick people up the ass that are going through it to say, you got to go get this resolved, not just for you, but for your people and for your business. So what impact does it have on others around them?
In the world of epidemics, when you have a disease process that passes from person to person with ease, it's called a propagated epidemic. Burnout is a propagated epidemic. This shit is contagious. When somebody burns out, it's most commonly 50% of the environment and 50% some personal factors. The research says 80-20, but my personal work with people over the past 6 years does not say 80-20. It says about 50-50.
Research says 80, it's work factors, 20
Yes.
it's personal. Got it.
Yes. I don't find that to be true in the real world, but that is what the research states. And so even if we're looking at it as 50-50, that means not only do you have things to address in yourself, there are things at this company that have to change because you're not the only person that's going to be susceptible to this. This is going to affect everybody. Burnout is absolutely contagious. And I say that exactly how I mean it. I'm not mincing words. I'm not trying to be cute. It's contagious. I don't know how many people have been caught in a burnout cycle because they said, well, 3 people already left this year. I can't leave. There's nobody left. Well, yeah, because burnout is contagious. And yes, you can leave. And yes, the company is going to lose it. And that's not your fault because the company did not keep you safe. The company did not keep you healthy. You got to go. So this is something that you need to take care of for yourself. You need to take care of for your team. You will be a bear to your team. You will not like the way you are treating them. When they are treated poorly, they will have their own reactions, stress reactions to that. And it just continues. It just rolls down the hill.
If they last in your company long
If they
enough for you to
last.
actually see those stress reactions.
Exactly. Yeah, they might just leave.
And this is so, and there's so much whether it's COVID lockdown or it's war in the Ukraine or it's,
Yeah.
what's the economy going to look like? And are we in a recession? There's a whole lot to get stressed out about.
A lot.
That, it's so easy when people, I know when I work with leadership teams, I do an assessment and assess in these 6 pillars of having a great leadership team. And
Yeah.
5 of them are very team focused. And the first one is about mastering self-leadership.
Yeah.
And and clients always want to just brush, well, we're good at self-leadership. Let's work on our vision. Let's work on our strategy. Let's work on our culture. Let's work on our discipline around execution. It's like, if you're all screwed up and burned out and overwhelmed and frustrated and angry, none of the rest of that stuff matters.
No. And if you don't know who you are, and if you haven't worked through some of the trauma that you're bringing to the workplace every day, if you're not working through your coping mechanisms on a regular basis, you're not doing anybody any favors. I just released an episode that was called The Workplace is a Trauma Recycling Center.
Nice.
Right? Because we get to this place
Well, wait a minute. Recycling is good, right? It's sustainability. It's good.
Yeah. We're just bouncing our traumas around one another. It's really normal for people in leadership positions to have gotten there because they were good at what they did, and then they were bumped up. They weren't necessarily taught how to manage people along the way. This is a common problem in teams, right? Leadership that doesn't know how to lead.
The Peter principle, right?
Yes, exactly, right? So we have these people that have been pushed up and they are demanding excellence from their teams the same way that their parents demanded excellence from them. You're bringing your parents' patterns into your workplace. You need to know yourself well enough to know which of those things are applicable and that are totally okay to apply and which things are like not doing too hot. Like, you have to be able to know that. self-mastery has to be number one in my book. I'm with you.
It's so important. As we kind of start to wrap this up, tell us a little bit about your business and how do you go out there specifically and help clients? Is it one-on-one with clients? Is it group programs? What do you do?
So my company runs group programs, but I'm not the person in charge of them. I have a fellow, I call them, my podcast is called Fried the Burnout Podcast, and the people that work with me are called Fried Guides
I
because that's
like it.
funny, because it makes me giggle every time I say it.
Does it make burned out people giggle or do they just get
Yes.
pissed off?
No, they like it. So I have fried guides that run the group programs. I don't run them myself. I work one-on-one with people on a very selective basis. I do sort of VIP one-on-ones only. And then I also work within companies in two different ways. One way is a speaker series where I'm going in like a tornado a little bit. And I'm saying, this is burnout. This is from the top. This is from the bottom. This is how you fix it by meeting together. And then we're talking about how to use resentment as a positive business tool. And then we're talking about how to use boundaries in the workplace in a way that's actually beneficial to everybody. Boundaries is one of the only things that research has shown to be really beneficial to reversing some of the signs of burnout. So boundaries belongs in the recovery side. Of course, if you have great boundaries in the prevention side, you're probably not going to burn out. So we can sort of throw that one in both. So then we teach people how to have boundaries. But my job going in from a speaker perspective in that sort of environment is to kickstart the conversations, to give people the right vocabulary, the right things to talk about, the right things to focus on, so that we're not focused on singling people out, dubbing people certain things, calling people names, sort of. We're not getting into that. We're talking about it from a scientific sourced background that says this is the foundation of how this works. What might that mean for our company? But my job is to kickstart the conversation. There are some companies that use my podcast for this. They use the podcast as like a book club. They listen to an episode and then they talk about it, which I think is, I found out that this was happening way after the fact. And I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm so into that. I think that that's great. And then the last thing that I do is with leadership teams, I will go in and when there is already sort of a widespread burnout, I help the team recover both with group coaching and individual coaching, depending on what's going on and who I'm talking to. But I'm never talking to more than like 5 people at a time at this rate because I can't, I would burn out otherwise.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say
Yeah.
if burnout is an epidemic, be
Yeah.
careful how many
Right.
people you're working with.
Exactly. So
And
I
I'm
have to
sure you
really
have some
limit that.
help on your end to keep
Of
your
course, yeah, I
honest.
don't do any of this by myself. I definitely have, if we need to do a full-on assessment, I bring in an outside team to do the assessment because that's not my forte.
Well, listen to Fried the Burnout podcast. And what are some other ways? How else can people find you in addition to the podcast?
I honestly think the podcast is the best place to go because you'll find anything that you need to know about me, you will get linked to from that place. And it's a really good way to sort through the things that might be useful to you. We've done almost 200 episodes of the podcast. We've probably covered the topic that you're looking for. So starting there is a really, really good place. I think the best place and the easiest place. And I like to make it easy for people. Just go one place. If you really want to find me, you can click on all the links in the show notes. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
don't give us too much; we'll get
No,
burned out.
exactly. Let's keep it simple.
Excellent. Well, hey, I'm glad I have such talented friends,
Me too.
and this was great. Thank you, Kate, so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.